everybody. Welcome back to the Trading Post. This here, of course, is the co-host, Noodle, my little buddy, and obviously he's having a fit right now. Anyways, this is episode 15, Mermaids. I hope you guys enjoy this one. I did a lot. There's a lot of research on this one. You got to figure this is probably the oldest cryptid that's been documented that I would think. Don't know for sure, but I would assume it's probably close to it if it isn't. Here you go, buddy. You can sit right there. All right, let's get into it, you guys. Okay. It's going to be a long one. In folklore, a mermaid is an aquatic creature with the head and upper body of a female human and the tail of a fish. Mermaids appear in the folklore of many cultures worldwide, including Europe, Asia, and Africa. Mermaids are sometimes associated with perilous events such as floods, storms, shipwrecks, and drownings. In other folk tradition, or sometimes within the same traditions, they can be benevolent or beneficent, bestowing boons or falling in love with humans. The male equivalent of a mermaid is the merman, also a familiar figure in folklore and heraldry. Although traditions about sightings of mermen are less common than these of mermaids, they are generally assumed to coexist with their female counterparts. I would assume so. The male and the female collectively are sometimes referred to as merfolk or merpeople. The Western concept of mermaids as beautiful, seductive singers may have been influenced by the sirens of Greek mythology, which were originally half bird-like, but came to be pictured as half fish-like in the Christian era. Historical accounts of mermaids, such as those reported by Christopher Columbus during his exploration of the Caribbean, may have been sightings of manatees or similar aquatic mammals. While there is no evidence that mermaids exist outside folklore, reports of mermaid sightings continue to present day. Mermaids have been a popular subject of art and literature in recent centuries, such as in Hans Christian Andersen's literary fairy tale, The Little Mermaid, in 1836. They have subsequently been depicted in operas, paintings, books, comics, animation, and live-action films. All right. Now we're going to go through the etymologies of this. Oh, by the way, you guys like my new cup? Pretty cool, huh? I don't know why I got it on the left side. Anyways, that's another story. Etymologies. The English word mermaid has its earliest known attention in Middle English. Chaucer Nun's Priest's Tale, circa 1930. The compound word is formed from mere, M-E-R-E, or sea, and maid. Merman, another English word, T. merman, head word in the OED for siren or mermaid is older, though now obsolete. It derives from Old English mermanen, add M-E-R M-E-R-E is C, plus menen, M-E-N-E-N, female slave. Earliest attestation, merimene, M-E-R-E-M-I-N-N-E, as a glass for siren in Corpus Glossary, circa 725. Middle English example, mermen, in a bestiary, circa 1220, now dated to 1275 to 1300, is indeed mermaid, part maiden, part fish-like. Its Old High German cognate, merimene, is known from biblical glosses and physiologues. The Middle High German cognate, merman, modern German merweib, or M-E-E-R-W-E-I-B, which is mermaid, is attested in epics, and the one in Rabenschlacht is a great-grandmother. This same figure is in an old Swedish text, a Hafru, H-A-F-F-R-U. And in Old Norse, a Sjokona, S-J-O-K-O-N-A, or sea woman. Old Norse mermanil, deal. Masculine pronoun is also listed as cognate to T. Merman, as well as on Margnelli, modern Icelandic Marbendil, and modern Norwegian Marmael. Merwif, Old English merwif, Merewif, is another related term and appears once in reference not so much to a mermaid but a certain sea hag. Sea hag, and not well attested later. It's I don't know what that is. It's MHG cognate merwip, Merwip, also defined as Meyerweib, Maerweib, in modern German, with perhaps merwoman, a valid English definition. The word is attested, among other medieval epics, in the Nibelungenlied and rendered merwoman or mermaid, water sprite, or other terms. The two in the story are translated as on Sjokonur, Sjokonur, sea woman. Sorry, you guys. I'm trying my best on these words, but it's tough. Okay, let's take 1 second here. Okay, origins. The siren of ancient Greek mythology became conflated with mermaids during the medieval period. Some European Romance languages still use cognate terms for siren to denote the mermaid, and cognate is a set of words that have been inherited in direct descent from etyments. French is sirene, Sirene, and Spanish and Italian, sirena, Sirena. Some commentators have sought to trace origins further back into ancient Middle Eastern mythology. Now, sirens, we're going to go on with that. Sirens. In the early Greek period, the sirens were conceived of as human-headed birds. But by the classical period, the Greeks sporadically depicted the siren as part fish in art. Okay? And I will have some pictures on here prior to me even getting on here. So I hope you guys enjoy the pictures. I put a little bit of sound in there. I'm trying to work on my editing. Let me know what you think about it. Anyways, the siren's part fish appearance became increasingly popular during the Middle Ages. The traits of the classical sirens, such as using their beautiful song as a lure, as told by Homer, have often been transferred to mermaids. These changes of medieval siren from bird to fish were thought by some to be the influence of Teutonic myth, later expounded in literary legends of Lorelei and Undine, though dissenting comment is that parallels are not limited to Teutonic culture. And here's a note, Teutonic, the Teutons, were an ancient northern European tribe mentioned by Roman authors. So you understand when they're saying Teutonic culture. The Teutons are best known for their participation, together with the Cimbri and other groups, in the Cimbrian War with the Roman Republic in the late 2nd century BC. The earliest text describing the siren as fish-tailed occurs in the Liber Monstrorum de Diversis Generibus, 7th to mid-8th century, which describes sirens as sea girls, or marinate poulet, whose beauty in form and sweet song allure seafarers, but beneath the human head and torso have the scaly tail end of a fish with which they can navigate the sea. Sirens are mermaids. Old High German, Early Middle German, Sirene, Mire Menu is explicit in the aforementioned Old German physiologues in the 11th century. Sorry, I had something come up on my phone there. Apologize for that. Anyways, okay, let's go to the Middle English bestiary, mid-13th century. clearly means mermaid when it explains the siren to be a merman, stating that she has a body and breast like that of a maiden, but joined at the navel by a body part, which is definitely fish, with fins growing out of her. Old French verse bestiaries, e.g. Philip de Thon's version, written circa 1121 to 1139, also accommodated by stating that a part of the siren may be bird or fish. That's interesting. Didn't know that. In the 9th century, physiologues manufactured in France, the siren was illustrated as a woman fish, i.e., a mermaid-like, despite being described as bird-like in the text. The Bodleian Bestiary, dated 1220 to 12 unknown, didn't give me the end of it, also pictures a group of fish-tailed mermaid-like sirens, contradicting its text, which likens it to a winged fowl, volatilis habet figurum, down to their feet. In the interim, the siren as pure mermaid was becoming commonplace, particularly in the so-called second family. Latin bestiaries, as represented in one of the early manuscripts classified into this group, additional manuscript 11283, circa 1170 to 1180s. While the siren holding a fish was a commonplace theme, the siren in bestiaries were also sometimes depicted holding the comb or the mirror. The comb and mirror became a persistent symbol of the siren or mermaid. In the Christian moralizing context, e.g. the bestiaries, the mermaid's mirror and comb were held as the symbol of vanity. That's interesting. Other Greek mythical figures, the sea monsters Scylla and Charybdis, who lived near the sirens, were also female and had fish-like attributes. Okay. Though Scylla's violence is contrasted with the siren's seductive ways by certain writers, Scylla and Charybdis lived near the siren's domain. In Etruscan civilization before the 6th century BC, Scylla was portrayed as a mermaid-like creature with two tails. This may be tied to images of two-tailed mermaids ranging from ancient times to modern depictions, and is sometimes attached to the latter character of Melusine, a sporadic example of sirens as mermaid, Tritonesis. In early Greek art, 3rd century BC, can be explained as the contamination of the siren myth with Scylla and Charybdis. The female water nymphs, or deities, although not depicted with fishtails, Nereid and nymph have also been applied to actual mermaid-like marine creatures purported to exist from Pliny, Roman Lusitania and Gaul, and onwards. Jane Ellen Harrison, 1882, has speculated that the mermaids or tritonesses of Greek and Roman mythology may have been brought from Middle East, possibly transmitted by Phoenician mariners. The Greek god Triton had two fishtails instead of legs, and later became pluralized as a group. The prophetic sea deity Glaucus was also depicted with a fishtail and sometimes with fins for arms. Ancient Middle Eastern mythology. Okay. Kululu. Depictions of entities with the upper bodies of humans and the tails of fish appear in Mesopotamian artwork from the Old Babylonian period onwards on cylinder seals. These figures are usually mermen or kululu, but mermaids do occasionally appear. The name for the mermaid figure may have been kulitu, meaning fish woman. Such figures were used in Neo-Assyrian art as protective figures and were shown in both monumental sculpture and in small protective figurines. A mermaid-like goddess, identified by Greek and Roman writers as Derceto or Atargatis, was worshipped at Ashkelon in a myth recounted by Diodorus in the 1st century BC. Derceto gave birth to a child from an affair. Ashamed, she abandoned the child in the desert and drowned herself in a lake, only to be transformed into a human-headed fish. The child, Semiramis, was fed by doves and survived to become a queen. In the 2nd century AD, Lucian describes seeing a Phoenician statue of Derceto with the upper body of a woman and the tail of a fish. He noted the contrast with the grand statue located at her holy city, Hierapolis, Bambas, which appeared entirely human. In the myth, Semiramis's first husband is named Onus. Some scholars have compared this to the earlier Mesopotamian myth Oannes, one of the Apkallu, or 7 sages described as fishmen in cuneiform text. While Oannes was a servant of the water deity Ea, having gained wisdom from the god, English writer Arthur Woe understood Oannes to be equivalent to Ea and proposed that surely Oannes had a fish-tailed wife and descendants with Atargatis, being one deity, thus descended through the mists of time. Diodorus's chronology of Queen Semiramis resembles the feats of Alexander the Great, or as far as his campaigns to India, etc. And Diodorus may have woven the Macedonian king's material via some unnamed source. There is a mermaid legend attached to Alexander the Great's sister, but this is of post-medieval vintage. Okay, now, sometime before 546 BC, Milesian philosopher Anaximander postulated that mankind had sprung from an aquatic animal species, a theory that is sometimes called the aquatic ape theory. He thought that humans who begin life with prolonged infancy could not have survived otherwise. There are also naturalist theories on the origins of the mermaid, postulating they derived from sightings of manatees, dugongs, or even seals. Still, another theory, tangentially related to the aforementioned aquatic ape theory, is that the mermaids of folklore were actually human women who trained over time to be skilled divers for things like sponges, and spent a lot of time in the sea as a result. One proponent of this theory is British author William Bond, who has written several books about it. All right, Nibelung Lead. 2 prophetic merwomen, or merwip, Sigelind, and her maternal aunt Hadeberg, are bathing at the Danube River when Hagen von Tronje encounters them. They are called Shokunar, or sea women, in the Old Norse saga. There is a swan maiden tale motif involved here. Hagen robs their clothing, but Grimm argued that they must have actually been swan maidens since they are described as hovering above water. In any case, this brief segment became the foundational groundwork of subsequent Water Nix lore and literature that developed in the Germanic sphere. They are a probable source of the 3 Rhine maidens in Richard Wagner's opera Das Rheingold, though conceived of as swan maidens in Wagner's 1848 scenario. The number being a threesome was suggested by the woodcut by Julius Schor von Karlsfeld and Eugene Napoleon Neureuter in the Pfizer edition of 1843. Now, Rabenschlacht. Middle High German mermaid is mentioned among other epics in the Rabenschlacht, or the Battle of Ravenna, 13th century, of the Dietrich cycle. The mermaid, or Undine, is named Wachit and is the ancestress of the traitorous Wittich, who carries him off at the time of peril to her submarine home. This material has been found translated as a medieval saga only in a late reworked Swedish version, one of the closing chapters of Diaric's saga, 15th century, also known as the Swedish epilogue. The mermaid Undine is here translated as Old Swedish Hafru. The Old Norse Peuerix saga proper calls the same mermaid a Shkona, or sea woman. The genealogy is given in the saga. The sea woman and Vilcinus, king of Scandinavia, together had a son, Vadi, or Wade of Zealand, who was a giant, Rezi, whose son was Wayland the smith, whose son after that was Vidga Valentson, Wittich, who became a companion, or a companion / champion of King Pidriker, Dietrich von Bern. Thus, the saga is an early source which associates a famed clan of merfolk with a place in Denmark, i.e. Sjælland, as was the divided portion of Vilcina land inherited by the bastard prince Wade, according to the saga. The Swedish epilogue transposed the locations concerning the battle from Italy to Germany and claimed the rescued Wittich was brought to Sjælland. That is to say, the crucial battle had been in Ravenna, northern Italy, in the German epic Rabenschlacht. But the battle spot was changed to Gronsport, somewhere on the Moselle in northern Germany in the Swedish version. Okay. Reported sightings. Let me see here. I don't know if I want to do that. We're going to go ahead and cut this off. I'm going to make a part 2 because we're almost at 30 minutes right now. Okay. I'll see you here soon. Okay, reported sightings. Roman, Lusitania, and Gaul. In his natural history, Pliny the Elder remarked that a Triton, merman, was seen off the coast of Olisipo, present-day Lisbon, Portugal, and it bore the physical appearance in accordance with common notion of the Triton, according to a deputation from Lisbon who reported it to the Emperor Tiberius. One Nereid was sighted earlier on the same Lisbon coast. Pliny remarks that contrary to popular notion, the true Nereids are not smooth-skinned in their human-like portions, but covered with scales all over the body. Their mournful songs at death have also been heard by coastal inhabitants. Also, multiple Nereids, which that's what they're calling the mermaids, the Nereids, had washed upon the shore, according to the legatus governor of Gaul, who informed the late Emperor Augustus about it in a letter. Okay, 16th century Swedish writer Olaus Magnus quotes the same passage from Pliny and further notes that the Nereid are said to utter dismal moans or wailings at the hour of her death, thus observing a connection to the legend of sea nymphs and the sister fates, whose clashing cymbals and flute tunes could be heard offshore. Olaus, in a later passage, states that the Nereids are known to sing plaintively in general. It has been conjectured that these carcasses of Nereids washed upon shore were presumably seals. In 1493, sailing off the coast of Hispaniola, Christopher Columbus spotted 3 sirens or mermaids, which he said were not as beautiful as they are represented, due to some masculine features in their faces. But these are considered to be sightings of manatees. During Henry Hudson's second voyage on the 15th of June in 1608, members of his crew reported sighting a mermaid in the Arctic Ocean, either in the Norwegian or Barents Seas. Dutch explorer David Dennell, during his expeditions to Greenland in 1652 to 54, claimed to have spotted a mermaid with flowing hair and very beautiful, though the crew failed to capture it. Danish physician and natural historian Thomas Bartholin wrote about a mermaid specimen caught in Brazil, probably a manatee. and subsequently dissected at Leiden. Though referred in the text as a seaman, Homo marinus from Brazil, the account was accompanied by an engraved drawing captioned Serene, whose appearance was that of a humanoid female with bared breasts. The specimen's body was deformed and without the sign of a tail, matching the drawing, and a membrane that joins the fingers together is also reflected in the drawing as well, which you'll see on here. You already did. The specimen's account and illustration was later reproduced by Linnaeus, who captioned the beast Siren Bartholini, hence Bartholin's siren. Okay? Now, man, there's a lot on this. You guys, we're getting through it though. I hope you guys take something away from this, because there's a lot. I had to look up on this. This is a lot. Okay, anyways, let's see here. Let's see. Bartholin was actually not the sole proprietor of the specimen, but he came into possession of its hand and ribs, which he also illustrated in his book. Based on the illustration, the hand has been determined to be the front flipper belonging to a manatee by a team of researchers. Bartholin himself had argued that it was a sea mammal closely related to seals, which they call Phocae, Phocae. His rationale was that since there are several marine counterparts to land mammals, such as seahorses, the possibility of a marine creature with striking likeness to humans could not be ruled out, though they should all be classified among seal kind. Erasmus Francisci from 1668 associated this Brazilian specimen with the local native lore of the Upiapra. Yeah. So that's that for that. Now we're going to go into the actual areas and the lore in those areas. We're going to go to colonial Southeast Asia. We're going to start with that. A type of mermaid was referred to as anthropomorphous or woman fish, allegedly inhabited the Spanish-ruled Philippines, particularly in the waters around the Visayan Islands. According to contemporary writings from the 17th century, the accounts are found in several books on various topics from magnetism to natural history to ecclesiastical history. These books refer to the merman, as Piscis anthropomorphous, and emphasize how human-like they appear in their upper bodies, as well as providing woodcut or etchings illustrating the male and female of the part human, part fish creature. The woman fish, or Pechay Majer in modern Spanish, was the name given to the creature among the Spaniards, but the sources also state it was called Duyon by the indigenous people, and it is assumed the actual creature was a dugong. Several of these sources mention the medical use of the woman fish to control the flow of blood, or the four humors. Okay. It was effective for staunching the bleeding, effective against hemorrhages, according to Johnston. Other sources mention the ability to stop bleeding, who also thought that the Philippine woman fish tasted like fatty pork. The bones were made into beads, as it was believed effective against defluxions of the humors, a discharge or flowing of fluid matter, which is defluxions. Just as a little note there. Okay, 18th century Moluccas, allegedly captured in the Moluccas in the 17th century, was the so-called Amboina mermaid, which its leading researcher has referred to as Samuel Faller's Serene, after the man who came into possession of it and made an original painting of it in color The painting was reproduced by Louis Renard on the fish of the region, first published in 1719. Sorry, I'm getting choked up. It was supposedly caught by Borin in Ambon province, presumably around the years 1706 to 1712, or perhaps the year 1712 precisely. During this period, Fallers served briefly as a soldier for the VOC, Dutch East India Company, starting June 1706, but turned associate curate for the Dutch Reformed Church, September 1706 to June 1712. Faller's mermaid with additional details were described by Francois Valentin in a 1726 book. The mermaid was 59 Dutch inches, or duimen, long, or 5 feet in Rhineland measures. She reportedly survived 4 days, 7 hours in a water tank and died after refusing food it was given, having uttered no intelligible sound or issuing sounds like screechings of a mouse. Something like a straw cape or a Japanese mino appears wrapped around her waist in the painting, according to one commentator, but Fallers revealed in his notes that he lifted the front and back fins and found it was shaped like a woman. The mermaid was suspected to be a dugong in reality, even by contemporary scholars such as George Rumphius, although Valentin was unable to believe they were the one and the same. Leading researcher Theodore W. Peach concurs with the dugong identification, but an ichthyologist has opined that I could more easily accept a small oarfish or eel-like fish rather than a dugong as a partial basis for the drawing. Noting that Renard's book carries an illustration of a plausibly realistic dugong as well. Okay, we're going to go to the Qing Dynasty, China. The Yuzhong Jinwen Scenes and Herds or Jottings on the south of China in 1730 contains 2 accounts concerning mermaids. In the first, a man captures a mermaid on the shore of Lantau Island. She looks human in every aspect except for her body is covered with fine hair of many colors. She cannot talk, but he takes her home and marries her. After his death, she returns to the sea where she was found. In the second story, a man sees a woman lying on the beach while his ship was anchored offshore. On closer inspection, her feet and hands appear to be webbed. She is carried to the water and expresses her gratitude toward the sailors before swimming away. Okay, U.S. and Canada. 2 sightings were reported in Canada near Vancouver and Victoria. One from sometime between 1870 and 1890, the other from 1967. A Pennsylvania fisherman reported 5 sightings of a mermaid in the Susquehanna River near Marietta in June of 1881. Okay, 21st century. In August of 2009, after dozens of people reported seeing a mermaid leaping out of Haifa Bay waters and doing aerial tricks, the Israeli coastal town of Kiryat Yam offered a $1 million award for proof of its existence. In February 2012, work on 2 reservoirs near Gokwe and Mutere in Zimbabwe stopped when workers refused to continue, stating that mermaids had hounded them away from the sites. It was reported by Samuel Sipepa Nkomo, the Water Resources Minister. What do you guys think about that? Okay, folklore of Britain and Ireland. Let's get to it, y'all. The Norman Chapel in Dunham Castle, built around 1078, has what is probably the earliest surviving artistic expression of a mermaid in England. It can be seen on a south-facing capital above one of the original Norman stone pillars. Mermaids appearing in British folklore as unlucky omens, both foretelling disaster and provoking it. Excuse me. Several variants of the ballad Sir Patrick Spens depicts a mermaid speaking to the doomed ships. In some versions, she tells them they will never see land again. In others, she claims they are near shore, which they are wise enough to know means the same thing. Mermaids can also be a sign of approaching rough weather, and some have been described as monstrous in size, up to 2,000 feet. In another short ballad, Clerk Colville, Child Ballad number 42, the mermaid seduces the title character and foretells his doom. It has been surmised that in the original complete version, the man was being penalized for spurning her, though the Scandinavian counterparts that tells the complete story feature an elf woman or elf queen rather than a mermaid. Now, mermaids have been described as able to swim up rivers to freshwater lakes. In one story, the Laird of Lornty went to aid a woman he thought was drowning in a lake near the house. His servant pulled him back, warning that it was a mermaid, and the mermaid screamed at them that she would have killed him if it were not for the servant. But mermaids could occasionally be more beneficent, teaching humans cures for certain diseases. Mermen have been described as wilder and uglier than mermaids, with little interest in humans. According to legend, a mermaid come to the Cornish village of Zenor, where she used to listen to the singing of a chorister, Matthew Truella. The two fell in love, and Matthew went with the mermaid to her home at Pendore Cove. On summer nights, the lovers can be heard singing together. The legend recorded by folklorist William Buttrell stems from a 15th century mermaid carving on a wooden bench at the Church of St. Senara in Zenor. Some tales raised the question of whether mermaids had immortal souls, answering in the negative. In Scottish mythology, a Seaig is a freshwater mermaid, though little beside the term has been preserved in folklore. Mermaids from the Isle of Man, known as Benverey, are considered more favorable toward humans than those of other regions, with various accounts of assistance, gifts, and rewards. One story tells of a fisherman who carried a stranded mermaid back into the sea and was rewarded with the location of treasure. That'd be pretty cool, huh? Another recounts the tale of a baby mermaid who stole a doll from a little girl, but was rebuked by her mother and sent back to the girl with a gift of a pearl necklace to atone for the theft. A third story tells of a fishing family that made regular gifts of apples to a mermaid and was rewarded with prosperity. In Irish lore, Liban was a human being transformed into a mermaid. After 3 centuries, when Christianity came to Ireland, she was baptized. The Irish mermaid is called Mero in tales such as Lady of Galeras, published in the 19th century. Okay, we're on to the Scandinavian folklore. The Hafru. The mermaid corresponds to Danish and Bokmål Norwegian Havfru, whereas merman answers to Danish Norwegian Havmand. As a side note, a supposed Old Norse Hafru is the etymological source of Norman French havet, for a man snatching water sprite, according to one linguist. An early description of the Hafru and her mate Havmand was given by the Dano-Norwegian bishop Pontoppidan, 1753. They were considered the mating female and male of the creature inhabiting the North Sea, and their offspring was called Mermael or Mermayet, as repeated by later commentators. Though he was aware of fabulous fables being told about them, he was convinced such a creature existed. But as they were non-human, he argued the term Havmand, or which was merman, should be avoided in favor of some coined terms such as sea ape. He also knowingly employed Old Norwegian, Old Norse marriage, and Havstrambe as the Norwegian names of the mermaid and merman respectively. The Havfru cognates. The Icelandic cognate form is Hafru with several synonyms, though instead of these, the commonly used term today is Hafme. The Faroese forms are Havfrug. The Swedish form is Havsfru with other synonyms such as Sjojungfru or Sjura, sea fairy, the maritime counterpart of the forest Skogskra. Other aliases, the terms Marigur or Havgugr are as aliases for mermaid were apparently current among the populace in modern age Iceland. According to John Arneson, alongside the Marbendil, modern Icelandic for on Marmanil, Benjamin Thorpe, 1851, writing on Norwegian folklore, gave Margigur for mermaid and Marmanil for merman as Norwegian folk terms. But these are interpolations which the source Andreas Faye's Norske Sagen of 1833 only side noted as occurrences of old terms in medieval literature. General characteristics. The beautiful Havfru of Scandinavia may be benevolent or malicious, and legends about her abducting maidens is given as a case of point for her malice. It is said that Havfru will avenge harm done to it, as in the Norwegian anecdote of one who was lured near the ship and had her hand cruelly lopped off on the gunwale. She caused a storm that nearly drowned the wicked sailor. Okay. Omen, prophecy, and wisdom. The appearance and sightings alone betides an impending storm. Norwegians do not wish to see Havfru, as she heralds storm or bad weather in Norway. The appearance of the Skura forebodes a storm or poor catch in Swedish tradition, much as the appearance of the Skogskra, or the wood nymph, presages poor catch for the hunter. According to the superstitions of Swedish fishermen, if one saw a Skura who was harbinger of tempest and bad catch, one should not tell his comrades, but strike flint against steel to light a spark. In other cases, the Scandinavian mermaid is considered to be prophetic. The tale type, the mermaid's message, is recognized as a migratory legend, a group of tales found in Scandinavia, with parallels found elsewhere, according to the scheme devised by Raider Thorolf Christensen. This may not necessarily involve the mermaid's spaying, and in the following example of this ML-type tale, she merely imparts wisdom. A fisherman who performs favors and earns the privilege to pose 3 questions to a mermaid. He inquires about the most suitable material for a flail, or basically a club of sorts, to which she answers calf's hide, of course, and tells him he should have asked about how to brew water into beer, which would have benefited him more greatly. Okay, that's interesting. Merfolk as abductors. The Swedish ballad Havsfrun is an instance where a mermaid kidnaps a human girl at age 15, and when the girl's brother accomplishes the rescue, the mermaid declares she would have cracked her neck if she knew she would be thus betrayed. The Swedish merman, Havsmannen, steals a human woman to become his bride, according to folklore. Okay, so now we're going to go to the Marmael. As aforementioned, the mermaid Havfru takes the merman Havman for husband and produce children called Mermael. Sea talkers is what they call it, which the fishermen sometimes bring home to gain insight into the future. Early sources say that Norwegian fishermen who capture the Marmael may bring them home, but do not dare keep it for more than 24 hours before turning them back into the sea from whence they found it. Margigur. John Arneson describes the Margiger as yellow-haired woman who is fish from the waist down, who drags careless seamen to the depths of the sea. However, Margiger literally means something like mer troll. And in medieval tradition, the Margiger is more of a sea monster or sea ogress. That's interesting. According to a version of the saga of St. Olaf, or Olaf II of Norway, the king encountered a Margiger whose singing lulled voyagers to sleep, causing them to drown, and whose high-pitched shrieks drove men insane. Her physical appearance is described as she has a head like a horse with ears erect and distended nostrils. According to the version of the saga of St. Olaf, Olaf II of Norway, the king encountered a Margiger whose singing lulled voyagers to sleep, causing them to drown, and whose high-pitched shrieks drove men insane. Her physical appearance is described as she has a head like a horse with ears erect and distended nostrils, big green eyes, and fearful jaws. She has shoulders like a horse and hands in front, but behind she resembles a serpent. This Margiger was also said to be furry like a seal and gray-colored. Western European folklore. Melusine is a mermaid-like character for European folklore, cursed to take the form of a serpent from the waist down. Later depictions sometimes change this to a fishtail. At some point, possibly in the late 19th century, her name became attached to the two-tailed mermaid of heraldry. The alchemist Paracelsus' treatise, a book of nymphs, sylphs, pygmies, and salamanders and other folks, novels, Undine, and eventually to the famous literary mermaid tale, Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. During the Roman period, mermaids were often associated with lust. Nice little note there. Okay, anyways, we're going to go on. Byzantine and Ottoman Greek folklore. The conception of the siren as both a mermaid-like creature and part bird-like persisted in Byzantine Greece for some time. The physiologists began switching the illustration of the siren as that of a mermaid, as in a version dated to the 9th century. The 10th century Byzantine Greek dictionary Suda still favored the avian description. There is a modern Greek legend that Alexander the Great's sister Thessalonike turned into a mermaid, or a Greek Yopiova, after her death, living in the Aegean. She would ask the sailors on any ship she encountered only one question: is King Alexander alive? To which the correct answer was, he lives and reigns and conquers the world. This answer would please her, and she would accordingly calm the waters and bid the ship farewell. Any other answer would enrage her, and she would stir up a terrible storm, dooming the ship and every sailor aboard. This legend derives from an Alexander romance entitled The Philida to Megalaxandro, dating to the Ottoman Greece period, first printed in 1680. Now, Eastern Europe folklore. The Rusalkas are the Slavic counterpart of the Greek sirens and naiads, often seducing sailors to their doom. The nature of the Rusalkas varies among folk traditions, but according to ethnologist D.K. Zelenin, they all share a common element. They are the restless spirits of the unclean dead. They are usually the ghosts of young women who died a violent or untimely death, either by murder or suicide, before their wedding, especially by drowning. The Rusalkas are said to inhabit lakes and rivers. They appear as beautiful young women with long pale green hair and pale skin, suggesting a connection with floating weeds and days spent underwater in faint sunlight. They can be seen after dark dancing together under the moon and calling out to young men by name, luring them to the water and drowning them. The characterization of Rusalkas are both desirable and treacherous, is prevalent in Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, and was emphasized by 19th century Russian authors. The best known of the great Czech nationalist composer Antonin Dvorak's operas is Russalka. In Sadko, an East Slavic epic, the title character, an adventurer, merchant, and guzli musician from Novgorod, lives for some time in the underwater court of the Caesar and marries his daughter, Chernova, before finally returning home. The tale inspired such works as the poem Sadko, composed by Nikolai Rimsky Korsakov, and the painting Sadko by Ilya Repin. Okay, now Chinese folklore. A merfolk race called the D people are described as populating its own nation in the Shanxiang Classic of Mountains and Seas, a compilation of Chinese geography and mythology. Dating from the 4th century BC, the ancient work also included several types of human-headed fish, such as the chiru or red roo fish, as well as creature with some human-like qualities like the renyu or human fish. Note, these are not of a specific gender, so they are not really conducive to being called mermaids. Though some English European writers might use mermaid as shorthand, there is also an account of the hiranyu, or sea human fish, given in the Taiping Guangxi compilation, sourced from the work entitled Qianwei. The female of its kind had a head like beautiful women's, with hair like a horse's tail, and white skin like jade without scales, covered with multicolored downy hair or peach fuzz, and legless. The male and female had sexual organs like humans, so that widows and widowers would keep them in their ponds, and the creatures could perform sexual intercourse normally as a human would. Oh man, I ain't even comment on that. I guess you do what you gotta do. An anecdote considered relevant concerns a renyu, or human fish, allegedly seen by the ship carrying Jia Dao, an emissary to Korea. She had an unkempt hairdo and scarlet mane extending to the back of her elbows. Jia ordered the crew to bring her aboard with poles, but she escaped. Jia explained that she was a renyu, adept at fornicating with humans, and was a type of human dwelling in the sea. The anecdote in the Lost Kuyiji records of bygone extraordinary things, is what it's called, from the Northern Song period, survives in quotes from Li Shu compilation Gujin Tushu Jicheng, comprehensive compendium of illustrations and books, ancient and modern. Okay, now we're going to Korean folklore. Korea is bound on three sides by the sea. Korea is bound on three sides by the sea. In some villages near the sea in Korea, there are mysterious stories about mermaids. Mermaids have features just like humans. Kim Dam-ryung, a mayor of the town, saved 4 captured mermaids from a fisherman, as recorded in the Yadam unofficial histories. In Dongabek Island of Busan is a tale of a princess, Hwang Ok, from Naranda, a mythical undersea kingdom of mermaids. This tale is based on the historical Hyo Hwang Ok from India. Another tale concerns a mermaid named Sinjki, who warned fishermen of impending storms by singing and throwing rocks into the sea from Geoman Island. The island's residents believed her to be a goddess of the sea and that she could predict the weather. Japanese folklore. The Japanese equivalent is Ningyo, human fish, according to one dictionary. Ningyo oftentimes refers to a half woman and half fish fabulous creature, such as mermaid, though not necessarily female. Despite the dictionary stating it has the appearance of half woman, half fish, the creature has been pictorialized rather as being with a human female head sitting on a fish body. Ningyo flesh. The Ningyo flesh was purported to be an elixir, and consuming its flesh said to bestow remarkable longevity. A famous Ningyo legend concerns the Yao Bikuni, who is said to have partaken of the flesh of a merfolk and attained miraculous longevity and lived for centuries. It is not discernible whether the flesh was a female. A pair of translators call it flesh of a mermaid in one book, but merely a strange fish with a human face in another. As yokai, a ningyo might be counted as a yokai since it is included in Toriyama Seiken's Hayaki Yagyo series. Gender is unclear as it is only described as being with a human face, a fish body. However, Seiken's Ningyo picture actually represents a human fish that lives in western China, also known as the Dai people, Darin, according to the inscription printed alongside. They are described in the Classic of Mountains and Seas and translated as the Low People or the Dai people. Indian folklore. In Hinduism, Savannah Macha, Golden Mermaid, is a daughter of Ravana who appears in the Cambodian and Thai versions of the Ramayana. She is a mermaid princess who tries to spoil Hanuman's plans to build a bridge to Lanka, but falls in love with him instead. She is a popular figure in Thai folklore. Okay. Southeast Asia and Polynesia. In Thailand, Savannah Macha is a daughter of Tosakant, appearing in the Thai and other Southeast Asia versions of Ramayana. She is a mermaid princess who tries to spoil Hanuman's plans to build a bridge to Lanka, but falls in love with him instead. In Cambodia, she is referred to as Savannah Macha, a favorite for Cambodian audiences. Indonesia. In the Havanese culture of Indonesia, Roro Kidul is a sea goddess and the queen of the southern seas. The mermaid queen is said to inhabit the southern beach in Java. She has many forms. In her mermaid form, she is called Nyai Blorong. The Philippines. That's the next one. In the Tagalog language, mermaids are known as Serena and Siokoi, respectively. The general term for mermaid among all ethnic groups is Serena. In the Philippines, mermaid concepts differ per ethnic group. Among the Pangasinis, the Binalatongan, mermaid is a queen of the sea who married the mortal Maganu, Palasapas, ruled humanity for a time. Among the Ilocano, mermaids were said to have propagated and spread through the union of the first Serena and first Litayo, a water god. Among the Bicolano, mermaids were referred to as Magandara, known for their beautiful voice and vicious nature. Among the Sambal, mermaids called Mambabuno are depicted as having twin fins instead of one. Now, New Zealand. Mermaids and mermen are also characters of the myth of Penia of the Reef, a well-known tale of Maori mythology. Has many parallels with stories of sea people in other parts of the world. Okay, African folklore. Mami Water, or Mother of the Water, are water spirits venerated in West, Central, and South Africa, and in the African diaspora in the Caribbean and parts of North, Central, and South America. They're usually female, but sometimes male. They are regarded as diabolical beings and often femme fatales, luring men to their deaths. The Persian word, menale, means mermaid. Now, in Zimbabwe, mermaids are known as Njuzu. They are believed to be solitary and occupy one body of water. Individual Njuzu may be benevolent or malicious. Angry Njuzu may be blamed for unexpected misfortunes, such as bad weather or the sudden disappearance of people. Benevolent Njuzu are thought to reside in peaceful lakes or rivers. If a person goes missing near such lakes or rivers, they may have been taken by the Njuzu. To obtain the person's release, local elders will brew beer as a propitiatory offering and ask the Njuzu to return the person alive. Those seeking the person's release are not supposed to cry or shed tears. If the Njuzu releases the person, they will become or be regarded as a Nanga or traditional healer with knowledge of herbs, medicinal plants, and cures. Examples from other cultures are the Jengu of Cameroon. Now, we're at Arabian folklore. The 1001 Nights collection includes several tales featuring sea people, such as Julinar the Seaborn and her son King Badr Basim of Persia. Unlike depictions of mermaids in other mythologies, these are anatomically identical to land-bound humans, differing only in their ability to breathe and live underwater. They can and do interbreed with land humans, and the children of such unions have the ability to live underwater. In the tale Abdullah the Fisherman and Abdullah the Merman, the protagonist, Abdullah the Fisherman, gains the ability to breathe underwater and discovers an underwater society that is portrayed as an inverted reflection of society on land. The underwater society follows a form of primitive communism where concepts like money and clothing do not exist. In The Adventures of Bulakaya, the protagonist, Bulakaya's quest for the herb of immortality leads him to explore the seas, where he encounters societies of mermaids. That's pretty cool. Okay, American folklore. The Neo-Taino nations of the Caribbean identify a mermaid called Akaiya with attributes of the goddess Jaguar, and the hibiscus flower of the Magagua tree, Hibiscus tiliaceae. In modern Caribbean culture, there is a mermaid recognized as a Haitian voodoo loa called La Serene, the mermaid, representing wealth, beauty, and the Orisha Yamaya. Now, the Lara and the Ipupira. In Brazilian folklore, that's where we're at now. In Brazilian folklore, the Ayara, also known as Mãe de Agua, Lady Mother of the Water, is a water-dwelling beauty whom fishermen are prone to fall prey to. Lara is a beautiful white woman who lives in a river and seduces men as she sings with her hypnotizing and enchanting voice. Once the man is seduced, he is drawn into the river to be gone forever. She is reputedly golden-haired, thought to be blonde, blue-eyed image was not attested until, or though the blonde, blue-eyed image was not attested until after the mid-19th century. To the best knowledge of Camara Cascudo, Cascudo is in his earlier writing contended that though the Lara was rooted in two indigenous beings, the water devil, Ipupira, and the Cobra Grande, he also saw the combining of the Portuguese lore of the enchanted Moura, or the Moorish girl, who was obviously dark-skinned. The Lara became increasingly to be regarded as a woman fish after the image of the European sirens and mermaids. It is often argued that the legends of the Lara developed around the 18th century out of the indigenous myth of the Ipupira. Among the Tupinamba people, the Ipupira was originally conceived of as a male water dweller that carried fishermen to the bottom, devouring their mouths, nose, fingertips, and genitals. European writers during the age of exploration disseminated the myth, but the Gandavo of 1576 included an illustration of Hippopura with female breasts. Subsequently, the Jesuit Cardim wrote that the Hippopura also consisted of females that looked like women with long hair. Though somewhat vague in the case of Gandavo, Cardim, he clearly injected Christian opinion which would readily relegate the role of emasculating men to the female kind. Later, with the introduction of African slaves, the Yoruba myth of La Manja was admixed into the telling. So everybody, sorry that was a long-winded one, and I was having some technical difficulties, but it is what it is, and we will take care of that. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, because this is probably the oldest cryptid there is, as far as accounts go. I mean, people have had accounts of these probably, I wouldn't dare venture to say since before they had ships and was sailing. when people were standing on the shores and didn't know how to sail or fish, or sail or go distances, they'd probably stand on the shores and see these things jumping into the waters. So there's probably accounts since, obviously since probably before written history, I would think. But you tell me what your opinions are. Write it in the comments. Tell me if this was intriguing, if it was interesting. I mean, my God, all these different lores from around the world, It's interesting to see what they call it and, what their take is on this mythical, maybe extraterrestrial creature, whatever it may be, or a spirit, as some of them think. We all have our own take on it. And we can't judge. We don't know. Can't judge them. And we don't judge people here. We take into consideration our opinion, but we don't try to force it on nobody. I mean, I'm giving you the information. You all just take it and do with it what you will. And, as I always say, this is for educational, entertainment purposes, as well. We're trying to learn what we can. We're trying to disseminate what we can and figure out what our opinions are of this situation, what we think it is. What do you think? Do you think that a so-called mermaid, do you think it has human-like features? Do you think it's green and scaly and looks like a lizard or something? Do you think it's like a shape-shifting type of entity? Do you think it has those abilities? Who knows? Do you think it has the abilities to change the weather? Make it stormy and stuff and crash sailors into the rocks? Or do you think it's a kind entity? Do you think it actually helps people in trouble when they run into trouble on the seas? Could that be possible? I don't think it's completely ruled out. I don't know, but I could be sure of this. I don't know if I'd want to run into one because I want to take the chance that it would be kind. It's unknown. There's too many variables with that. But as I say, I hope you guys were entertained on this one. I hope you've learned something. I'm sorry it was so long. Oh my God. The notes on this thing was ridiculous. I think I had more notes on this one than I've had on any episode I've done so far. So, my apologies for the length. But I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have fun. And that's episode 15, y'all. The Mermaids. Origins of Mermaids. The whole gist of them. As far as I can pull up. And I hope you all enjoy it. This is the Trading Post out. You have a great day. Till next time.